We had so much talk about Russian interference with the American political campaign of 2016 and 2020, but there doesn't seem to be nearly as much media discussion about Iran's interference in the 2020 campaign and the 2024 campaign. So Iran clearly does not want Donald Trump to become elected president. And so I suspect, to whatever extent that Iran funds and directs the anti-Israel protests on college campus, that Iran recognizes that these rallies are not in its best interest, because the more intense the anti-Israel protests, right, the more that Democrats tear themselves apart, the worse it looks for Joe Biden's foreign policy and for the Biden administration. Right, the more chaos there is, the worse it looks for the incumbent party, which is the Democrats. So if these anti-Israel protests have been primarily some top-down operation run by Iran, which there's not been much media coverage, then that could be an explanation. Another explanation is that the anti-Israel protests are top-down, run by Democratic activists, and they simply recognize it's not in the Democratic Party's best interest right now to have anti-Israel rallies that convulse the nation. Other explanations are that the anti-Israel protests were from the bottom up, and they were strengthened when Israel was struggling and when Israelis were being slaughtered by their enemies. And now that Israel's fighting back successfully, that's taken the enthusiasm and the strength and the heart out from anti-Israel protesters. Another explanation is that people often start the school year in a more serious frame of mind. They want to move ahead with their education, they want to graduate, they want to land prestigious jobs. They have various goals that they set for themselves, and they don't want to derail that by spending their time protesting and possibly getting arrested. And on the other hand, when we had these intense anti-Israel riots, right, they were last spring. So they were in April, right, and people will get restless, right, 8 months into a school year. If these anti-Israel protests were primarily from the bottom down, then people get restless in April, and people don't tend to arrive at university restless. Another reason for the milder protests is that universities recognize that to maintain their standing, right, we all need, not just universities, businesses, we all will find it much easier and congenial for our life and for our projects to have either the tacit approval or the absence of active opposition of the people around us. If universities allow themselves to be taken over by an anti-Israel crowd, that will provoke intense blowback from many billionaires who support Israel, and also reduce public confidence in universities and reduce public willingness to fund universities. So I've been a blogger since 1997, and it's been my aim to not galvanize hatred towards me. I haven't carried through on this with 100% success, but I do think about what will people think of what I'm about to write, who don't have any particular agenda, who are not pro or con Luke Ford. How will that affect them? Because if I arouse a serious enough opposition to what I'm writing or what I'm commenting on in my YouTube videos, that just makes my life hell, and I don't want that. And so I want to make my points in words that will be as congenial as possible for as large an audience as possible, because we all depend on the consent of the community. Now, other people don't really care about us, but if we become sufficiently disruptive or sufficiently obnoxious, right, people will very quickly coalesce around this person's a problem, right? This person's a jerk, this person's a disruption. And universities want goodwill. Businesses want goodwill, and individuals should want goodwill as well, which is why institutions and individuals devote considerable resources to image management. And there was quickly a consensus among those running universities that you cannot allow these anti-Israel protests to disrupt campus business. And so that's the dividing line. Once these protesters start taking over public space and then limiting access to university facilities based on whether or not you're a Zionist, that is unacceptable, leaves you wide open for lawsuits, and you'll become the target of a high intense, well-funded pro-Israel crowd.